name is Elva Cord. I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Hi, I'm Tony Espinoza, and I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Hi, I'm Jamie Strachey, and I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Hi, I'm Kyle Park, and I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Hi, I'm Isabel Campbell, and I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Hi, I'm Gage Paget, and I'm from Peregrine Elementary.
Nice job. So after this, I'm going to read through this. You guys are going to read your statements, and then we're going to ask some questions for about 4 minutes, okay? So it's not all morning that we're going to sit here and ask you questions, okay? But I will let you keep going if you guys are really in good discussion about what it is that you learned, okay? All right. Congress has formed a congressional committee to look at how power is divided among the 3 branches of our national government. As expert witnesses, you will be asked to testify on the following questions. How did the framers use separation of powers and checks and balances to limit powers of government? Give examples of checks and balances at work today. Give examples of the use of federalism to limit power. Do you think that Congress should have the power to pass a bill over the president's veto? Why or why not? Do you think the Supreme Court should have the power to declare a law passed by Congress unconstitutional? Why or why not?
The framers used separation of powers and checks and balances to limit powers of the government by separating it into 3 different branches. The branches are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. We use the branches so that there's not just one super powerful government. The framers did this to prevent one group from having too much power. The legislative branch was created in Article 1 of the Constitution to give power to the United States Congress. The executive branch was created in Article 2 of the Constitution to give power to the President of the United States. The judicial branch was created in Article 3 of the Constitution to give power to the Supreme Court. Checking power means that each branch can stop other branches from making certain actions or final decisions. One branch may not agree with an idea and wants to change it. Balancing power is when no one government branch is given so much power that it can completely control the other branches. Recently, President Obama used his power to check Congress when he vetoed a bill. The bill was supposed to have both the United States House and Senate place new restrictions for the First Amendment rights, and that was only one of his veto bills. Framers use separation powers and checks and balances to limit powers of the government. To me, this means that there will be equal power among the branches.
Checks and balances means that the 3 branches of government have equal powers. The framers came up with this idea so no one can have all the power. The Constitution said the government will have the same limit of powers as the other branches, so the government won't have too much power. The executive branch is the only branch for the power to declare war. The judicial branch is the only branch for the power to initiate constitutional amendments. They each have different powers so that no one can have all the power to rule another branch. The power is separated to all 3 branches so that no one can have all the power.
Checks and balances are there to make sure no one gets too much power. It works like this because all 3 branches can check on each other. The 3 branches are judicial, legislative, and executive. One example of checks and balances is when making a law, the president may veto the bill made by Congress, but 2/3 of Congress may overpower his veto. Another example is that the judicial branch may say a bill made by Congress is unconstitutional. American Civil Liberties Union says that the new Ashcroft bill erodes on checks and balances or the presidential power. The second legislation would needlessly infringe on basic constitutional liberties. On July 15, 2008, this bill was vetoed by George W. Bush, then overwritten by the House of Representatives. The bill was for Medicare improvements for patients and providers. Those are examples of checks and balances at work today. If one branch got too much power and became like the King of England in the 1700s, our government would suffer.
Federalism is where you divide power in the organization between the state governments and the federal government. Some examples of the use of federalism is that the state government cannot make treaties with other countries. They also cannot give their own money or fight another country unless the threat is imminent. The federal government can. The federal government cannot spend the budget unless given approval by law. We the people, the citizen, and the Constitution says that the federal government cannot make laws that favor trading one state over the other. They also can't tax anything that leaves the country. Federalism gives the executive branch its powers, but it also gives the states powers, as has been clarified in Dillon's law.
Dillon's law is where the powers are necessarily granted. This means that they give certain powers to certain governments. On many occasions, the Supreme Court has been called on to find out what federalism means. But the Constitution had a lot of faith in federalism when it was created by the Founding Fathers. HistoryLearning.co.uk says that federalism can be seen as a compromise between the extreme concentration of power and the loose of independent states governing a variety of people, usually in a large expanse of territory. Federalism has the virtue of obtaining local pride, traditions, and power while letting a central government that can handle regular problems. The basic principle of American federalism is fixed in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1791, which states, the powers not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Congress should have the power to pass a bill over the president's veto because Congress can vote the way the people want them to vote. It would take a 2 out of 3 vote or a majority vote by Congress to pass a bill over the president's veto. This is also good because it keeps the president from having too much power. Overriding a veto means that after the president vetoes a bill, that there must be a 2 out of 3 vote by Congress to make the bill a law. When Congress threatens a veto, it means that they are trying to change your decision about a bill. If the president vetoes the bill, then the bill gets sent back to Congress for a 2 out of 3 vote, which will tell if the bill becomes a law or not. In Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution, it establishes the process of passing a bill into a law. The first step is to write a bill. The next step is to go to committee and get a majority vote. Last of all, you have to get the president to approve the bill. If that happens, the bill becomes a law. If not, the president has vetoed the bill and the bill gets sent back to Congress for a 2 out of 3 vote. Our 43rd President, George W. Bush, had only 4 vetoes overridden. 2 of the 4 that were overridden by Congress were for food, conservation, and energy, and the second one was for Medicare improvement for patients and providers. Congress should have the power to pass a bill over the president's veto to keep the president from having too much power.
The Supreme Court, the highest ranking court. So I think the Supreme Court should be able to overrule Congress when necessary. The Supreme Court has the power to declare a law constitutional or constitutional. That power is called judicial review. Judicial review is the power of the Supreme Court to declare a law constitutional or unconstitutional. One example of judicial review is the court case Marbury v. Madison. The court case is about President John Adams appointing 82 new Federalist justices. The next president, Thomas Jefferson, didn't want all his justices, so he didn't deliver the official documents to appoint Justice William Marbury's position. Marbury took his case to the Supreme Court based on the Judiciary Act of 1801. The Supreme Court declared the act unconstitutional. This was the first example of judicial review. I do think the Supreme Court should be able to declare law constitutional or unconstitutional. We are now ready for your questions.
Fabulous, Sean. Great statements. Yes, know their stuff. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to set your timers. And we are going to ask you some questions. Okay.
Give an example of checks and balances, and explain how the system works.
Checks and balances is what they use to make sure that one branch gets too much power and overrules another branch. One example is making a law. The president can veto the bill, and Congress can take it back and have a vote. And if that vote is 2/3 or majority vote of the people, they can override his veto.
I'd like to add on. Separation of powers means that the 3 branches of government have equal powers. The framers came up with this idea so no branch could have all power.
What are some powers of the president? Which power do you think is most important and why?
I believe vetoing a bill because then there isn't unfair laws to some people, for some people.
I'd like to add on. So some other things that he can do is making treaties with other countries.
I like to add on, he can also veto a bill made by Congress.
It's okay, Jane. It's okay.
Okay, let's see here. Do you think the Supreme Court justices should be appointed for life? Why or why not?
I think that they should because they're appointed and they're not like,
I'd like to add on, they are appointed, not voted for, and so
I would like to add on, I think it is right to appoint them because otherwise they could be pressured into making a decision because of rich people being like, I'll pay you this much money if you go this way.
How do cases get to the Supreme Court?
they start at the county court, they go to the federal and the state until they get to, and they have to,
I'd like to add on, they have to appeal through every court, and then after they go through the county, state, district, and federal, and then they get to the Supreme Court, and they can refuse to be able to say no, to not have, they might agree with the other court's decisions and not want to actually be, like, judged.
Should the Supreme Court be allowed to refuse to review a case?
yes, they should, because if they've been found guilty too many times, I think they can make the decision whether or not to refuse that.
I would like to add on, they can also refuse your case if it does not pertain to the Constitution.
Should the president be allowed to serve more than 2 terms? Why or why not?
I don't think so, because if we had him for too long, if we had the president for too long, he might gain too much power and be like the King of England in the 1700s.
I'd like to add on, if he became like the King of England, then he might be taking our rights away.
Does judicial review give 9 justices too much power? Why or why not?
It does not, because the Constitution gives them the power, and it divides the power of the justices from the president, or the Supreme Court.
I'm gonna ask just one more. What keeps the president from becoming too powerful?
Separation of powers. By separating it into three different branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch.
I would like to add on, they also use checks and balances to stop him from becoming too powerful.